Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 102nd ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing great today, Cameron. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Just got back from vacation. Producer Cameron and I were in South Carolina for a week, and unfortunately that meant, well, there's good news and bad news. Good news is we set up an interview to play during our normal podcast publishing time this past week, but I forgot to bring the memory card to South Carolina that had the interview on it so that I could edit it and publish it. So it sat here in Springfield, and now we're back in Springfield recording a quick intro to the interview so that you can listen to the interview.
How was your trip?
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Went to the beach. Played some mini golf. Actually, we just got back from playing mini golf today.
Mm-hmm.
Not in South Carolina.
No.
Yeah, we played mini golf here today in Springfield. It's very hot, but we have a friend here visiting us, so we want to spend some quality time with him. You guys have already spent the week with him, but I didn't get to go to South Carolina, so
yep.
I get to see you guys now.
We thought about you every day.
Wow. I likewise. Missed you both. Missed you all.
Yeah, I missed the studio. Yeah, we missed our new flag. Missed our old flag.
I missed the listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Man. But we're back.
Yep, we're back. We have an awesome interview. We have a former Mizzou football player. He's a walk-on wide receiver. His name's Cameron Chancey from Branson, Missouri. We get to hear about his whole story, how he came to Mizzou, how he was, had always planned on not going to Missouri. Missouri kind of fell into his lap at the last minute, a place where he could still play Division I football. I really enjoyed that interview. I really think the listeners are going to enjoy it as well.
I agree. Yeah, it was awesome getting to talk to Cameron. A lot of good memories, a lot of good stuff. So it was a lot of fun for us too. I think we could have gone on for a lot longer. Yeah,
we might have to have him back because after we, stopped recording, we kept wanting to talk about stuff. I had to be like, okay, just save the rest of that. We'll, if we need another interview later, we'll jump back on. We mostly talked about the transition for Missouri into the SEC and then the first couple years in the SEC. So we did talk about the 2013 team. That was a lot of fun. But we really didn't get into the 2014 season very much. So we do have that to go back to if we ever want to. So that's good.
Yep.
So without further ado, here is the interview. All right, we are here with two-time SEC East Division champion, Cotton Bowl champion, Citrus Bowl champion, former Mizzou wide receiver walk-on Cameron Chancey. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So do you put that on your business card, SEC East Division champion, Citrus Bowl champion?
Yeah, I think that'd be a great icebreaker to open up for some people. But no, I actually do get asked about it more often than not. I have my the Citrus Bowl helmet, the last helmet that I wore, sitting on the desk in my office. And a lot of people, oh, you're a Mizzou fan, huh? I was like, oh yeah, that's the helmet I wore when I played. Oh, nice. You a kicker?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I wasn't a kicker, but thanks for the the stereotype. I appreciate that. But anyway, so yeah.
Well, take us through. So you're not a kicker. So take us through kind of the beginnings of your football career. We know that you were a quarterback at Branson. I was doing a little bit of research, and I think I couldn't find anything about your senior year, but according to maxpreps.com, you were all COC honorable mention quarterback your junior year.
Yes, yeah, and then I think I was honorable mention all-state senior year. We were pretty nice senior year, not gonna lie, but funny enough, we ended up going to the playoffs, second or third round, something like that. We actually lost to Corbin Bergstresser's team in Lee Summit, who then I ended up being teammates with at Mizzou. But funny, but yeah, so I started off as a QB in Branson and was the quarterback. I took over the starting spot my sophomore year Then started the rest of that sophomore year, junior year, senior year. Had a great time, played basketball, football, ran track. Really loved running track, was a hurler, and just kind of anything else. And so it was fun to, play on the football field with some guys and run track against them as well, because Doriel Green was a big track guy as well. So we ran together and did some stuff like that. So that was awesome. And then I really thought I was going to go play football at the Air Force Academy. And so I was going to go, they run a very similar offense to what we ran in Branson, which wasn't my favorite thing in the world, but we ran the power I mid-veer option, we're just going to cram it down your throat, and the only time we'll throw it is on 3rd and a mile. And so, whatever. But my freshman year in high school, we ran the spread. My freshman team, I think we went 9-1 or something, and we were just really, really efficient at the spread. But unfortunately for us, our varsity team went 1-9. And so then coach right then was like, nah, I don't know this very well. We're scrapping it. We're changing everything. And we've got this perfect setup team with 5 or 6 wideouts that are efficient. And we go to this power I with 1 out on the weak side. And you're like, we're just not built for this. But hey, we made it work. So that was fun. But I thought I was going to play QB in college and go to a Air Force Academy and kind of do the same system I had been in. But long story short, last minute things didn't end up working out. So I was kind of oh shoot, I need to figure out another place to go. So I was calling some of the coaches that had recruited me, just saying, hey, you have a spot, anything. I'd be willing to walk on as well. And so ended up, Coach Hill called me back and was like, hey, we got a spot for you. Want to come up? And at that point, I knew big D1. I didn't want to play QB. I'm 6'1"-ish at the time, 180 pounds. And I was like, that's not the stereotypical QB build. I was like, that's not going to be super, conducive for a long, extensive career at the quarterback position. So I was like, I'd much rather play wide receiver, really fast track guy. So I was like, I think I can make the transition to that position. So that's how it all started. Went up my freshman year at Mizzou and transitioned to wide receiver. And it kind of came naturally to me, honestly. I loved going from the quarterback, you're the commander of the team. You know everyone's role, everyone's position. And then all of a sudden at wide receiver, it's like, I just have to know where I'm going. Maybe they're next to me so we don't collide on certain routes. So I was like, hey, this is actually kind of nice academically. There wasn't as much to study in an already massive playbook. The jump from Branson High, which we probably ran 25 plays altogether.
Yeah.
And then my first day of camp, I get this binder that's this full of plays, and I'm like, this is just a wideouts. I don't know what else is, but it was good. So that was kind of the transition from high school into college.
Yeah. Taking a step back real quick, you mentioned track, and I forgot to mention up top, we now have 3 Camerons on the episode this week. So we refer to this Cameron as Producer Cameron. He specifically remembered you smoking him in hurdles in high school.
Oh man, well those were fun times. I loved running the hurdles. It was just, to me it was like, hey, you can be fast, but then there's also an obstacle in your way. So, go over it and then keep running fast again. So I loved the hurdles, but that's funny.
And then jumping back real quick to recruiting, you said you reached back out to some coaches that recruited you. So you were on Mizzou's radar when you were still in high school. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit and any other teams that were interested in you at that time?
Yeah, so I did some combines and different things of the sort and got, calls from different coaches. But as someone who wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, really an academic move that I wanted to go there, was also recruited to play football there. But I was like, go there and be an aerospace engineer, which now, thinking about that, I'm like, that was the stupidest thing I could have ever thought about even doing. But so it was stuff like hey, we'd be interested in my conversations. Like, hey, that's like super flattering and everything, but I think I'm going to go be an aerospace engineer. And so, had some smaller schools that I was talking to about aerospace engineering, because that was something I really wanted to do, almost more than play football at first, or even run track, because I had a lot of track excitement. But I was like, hey, if you guys don't have aerospace engineering, then I don't even know if I want to continue the conversation. And so was just like Colorado School of the Mines had a great aerospace program. So I was like, hey, I'm be interested in even seeing what you guys have to offer, Missouri S&T or whatever. But then was set on being able to play Division I football and school at the Air Force Academy. And so after that, I kind of just didn't pick up the phone, didn't return any of the letters and notes and stuff that was sent my way. So I really closed myself off to a lot of recruiting. But there were a couple guys that I'd made connections with that I just kind of kept the door open with, like Coach Andy Hill, just a super great guy that I'd come in contact with. So
Cam, it's
was just super closed off to all that.
Yeah, for sure. We are entering August, which typically I think about fall camp starting and everything. What was fall camp like? I mean, was that pretty much like the biggest grind ever?
Yeah. So honestly, I look back and I think about it, and that's the only thing that I can say is it was a grind. You move into the dorms, you got super early wake up calls. It's like, I've got my stuff here for school, but I'm living in this dorm with a duffel bag of stuff that I'm going to camp with. And it's like, you get up and it's just football all day, every day. It's really a lot of meetings, understanding position stuff. There's meetings for every single team on the field. So you've got special teams meetings, and for every special team, PAT, kickoff return, punt return. There's different meetings for every single one of those. There's different meetings for every single position group, and there's film involved in all of that. So that's a huge portion of two-a-days. And it was camp, so we actually eliminated two-a-days, which was kind of nice, but you just had one extended practice. Mm-hmm. So we get there, and it's in Columbia, even down here, it's hot. And so it's nothing like, I live in Dallas now, and it's really hot down here, but it was still in the hundreds in some of the days, and it was just a grind. And so you get up super early, head over, tape weigh in, all that kind of stuff. Go to a position meeting, get kind of your game plan for the day, and then you head out to practice, and it's just nonstop, super fast, super high pace. Kind of at the summer camp, you're right at the borderline of hey, if you kind of get nicked and dinged, you've got quite a bit of time to recover. So we don't really care, it was just full speed ahead, especially me, walk-on guy. I'm fourth on the depth chart, way down there. They're like, you better start busting heads and be a tackling dummy for guys out there and stuff. So I'm getting banged up, beat up after practice. At that time, we had a pretty nice facility. So we had a really nice training room and everything like that. Nothing like the one is today. But we only had a small ice bath. And so what they do is they have all these big kiddie pools out there just filled with ice. So the whole team right after practice would jump into the kiddie pools, and you got guys in crop top shirts sitting in these kiddie pools freezing to death. And it was super fun, and they'd give you popsicles and stuff with electrolytes. So they're the old school pop ice popsicles, but filled with electrolytes, so it's good for you.
Like a Gatorade popsicle, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a super fun time, but it was, like I said, just a grind, a lot of hours. Mm-hmm. You'd come back after that practice, you'd eat, then you'd come back for film, be watching film, and then maybe later in the afternoon they'd do something fun. One time we rented out a movie theater for us to go watch and got us a bunch of popcorn and stuff like that. So there's fun times as well. but for the most part, you're there to do business and get on the same page as a bunch of your teammates.
Was there ever a point during that kind of stuff, during those grindy times, where you thought, since you were just a walk-on, where you're like, man, what am I even looking forward to at the end of this?
Yeah, right. There were some times where I was like, man, this, the grind stinks, and maybe it's not even going to pan out to be worth it if I, don't get any minutes or whatever I was looking for. But really, for me, it was more about the relationships with the guys that I was there with rather than about me and what I was going to do. And so I just wanted to take time to know the guys on a super deep level, get to share spiritually with them where I'm at, where I'm from, kind of what motivates me and what drives me is, my Lord and Savior. And so getting to share that with those guys was really more my driver than, I want to see the field or I want to do this. So in those tough times, I'm like, yeah, my body hurts. I feel like I've been banged up. I've like broken all my fingers. You can see, like I got, and whatnot. But I'm like, hey, it's not about that. It's about more than what's going on in the field. So to me, it was always worth it.
Yeah. Who were some of your best friends on the team?
Yeah. So fortunately and unfortunately, I had some of the greatest receiving classes in my time at Mizzou. But just right off the top of my head, some of my best guys, Bud Sasser. Long story short, we're from the same hometown. So I'm not originally from Branson, but I was born in Denton, Texas. And so Bud and I actually lived right down the street from each other in Denton, Texas, which is super, super funny. So we had a long, deep connection there. And he went to the high school I would have gone to had we stayed in Texas. But then Doriel was another one of those guys who I had a prior connection to. You guys may know Jake Brentz. He played at Kickapoo, some guys locally, and then got really close with LaDamian Washington. Me and LaDamian were super tight. And then it's so funny because on any other team, basketball team, there's like 15 guys. On the football team, full roster, not a whole traveling roster, but full roster. We had about 130 guys, practicing in a given practice. So that's a ton of guys. So we were with the wide receiving crew a lot. Yeah. And so LaDamian and Marcus Lucas and all those guys, we had a really fun crew. TJ Moe was there my freshman year and sophomore year. We got pretty close. So there was just a fun group of wide receivers that, you're pretty tight-knit with your position group.
I actually went to Kickapoo as well. So I was in the same grade as Jake Brentz. I didn't know him super well, but man, he was a really good football player.
Yeah.
And then funny story about Bud Sasser, the three of us actually played on a church league basketball team with him like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Way.
Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, and then he only played one game because he had to move back to Texas. I guess he was going to try and start working out for the NFL again. So he played one game with us.
He played one game with us, shot a buzzer beater and missed to try to win the game. And then that was it. We had to play the rest of the season without him.
Dang, that's unfortunate. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but he was all in while he was there. He came to our practices.
Yeah,
and
he was a cool guy.
Yeah, he was all aboard the team.
Yeah, he's the man. It's funny. A lot of people don't know his real name's Larry. So I always give him a hard time, and I call him Larry all the time. So Larry. But man, that's super fun. Yeah, so we had a bunch of really, really close guys right there. And then some of the other guys, Corbin Bergstresser and I got really close. He was one of the QBs. James Franklin as well. And then another guy, Alex Dimchek. He was on there, another QB. But it's funny, the guys that you end up spending a lot of time with. So quarterbacks and wide receivers are really a lot of the guys that we spent a lot of time with. And then how Coach did our locker room, which was really fun, is you weren't next to any position players that you were positioned with. So every locker was like alternating with guys. So, I may have had another offensive player in my row, but not necessarily next to me. So David Johnson, one of our corners, was right next to me. And we were in the same class, so we were next to each other all 4 years. And then Shane Ray was right down the way as well. So, just a bunch of – they mixed up the locker room. So you kind of had your guys who you got to know really well as well. So that was fun.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Gary Pinkel? You talked about, different things that he did, like how he ran practices and set up the locker room and stuff. Just he always kind of struck us. We were talking about before we hopped on here as a guy that maybe just kind of was less hands-on. Maybe we're completely off, but that's the perception we have, is he just kind of lets his assistants do their thing and he's just kind of assessing everything from the background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate as far as practice would go. He was such a great guy of putting the right people in the right spots so that he could do that. So he had the right offensive coordinators, the right position coaches, the right guys leading this portion of practice, and the right guys doing that. And I feel like from my position, it looked like he had so much trust in them that he was okay overseeing everything. And that didn't mean he was just like standing on the sideline the whole time. Like, he'd get up in your grill and let you have it, if you were out of line. But he was roaming around. He'd visit the wideouts in our practices. He'd visit, the O-line doing their drills. He'd be over with the D-backs, making sure everything was there. But it was like he set the guys in their positions to be able to succeed. And so he gave Coach Steck, who's now, I think, at Missouri State, just so much opportunity. He gave him the reins on the defense, and we had a couple of different coordinators while I was there on offense, Coach Henson, and a couple other guys, just the reins to be able to say, hey, it's on you guys. But he was very involved with what they were doing, so we could kind of see that. And then it's super funny from now that I've been out a few years, I've seen the transition. But he was very, very traditional in just like uniform and everything like that. Like, no, guys couldn't wear earrings, no necklaces, no, like your shirt underneath your pads had to either be black or white, and it had to like match the color, whatever, or it couldn't be white. It had to be black or gray. And it was just funny how he was just very traditional in that. And if you weren't wearing it, he'd let you know that you needed to have it on the next day or whatever. So, but he was a super great guy. He genuinely cared about every guy on the team, which I really, really admired. And he took such a strong, almost fatherly role to a lot of the guys, but it went deeper than football. At the end of a lot of our meetings during the week, he would give segments on just how to be a stand-up citizen, how to be a man of character, how to respect women, how to, do all of these things that were very, very great. And so I admired him a lot for that it wasn't just, hey, y'all are all here to play football for me and that's it. But he wanted to develop us as young men and leaders to go out after football and make the community and make the people around us better. So that was really cool. And I really admired Coach a lot for that.
I got just one quick one, Kyle, and then I'll let you take over. Would you consider yourself a Mizzou fan, like in high school or in middle school or anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, not. So, I long story short, my mom actually did go to Mizzou, but she grew up in the city, and everyone on her side of the family went to KU. And so when she ended up going to Mizzou, she got a scholarship, last second switched to Mizzou from KU. She was a golden girl at Mizzou, but my grandfather ended up sending a letter out to everyone in the family saying there's been a tragedy in the family. And so, awesome. It's funny. And so my mom was kind of like, hey, I want you to like Mizzou, but excuse me, it was never like crazy. And being originally from Texas, I was kind of a Texas guy. I was like, love UT and different schools down here. But then when we moved to Missouri, I was like, kind of like Mizzou, didn't follow them a ton, but they got really good right before I got there. And so
that always helps.
Then I was kind of like, okay, I know who Chase Daniel is. I know who, these guys are. And I'm like, oh, all right, this Jeremy Macklin guy is pretty good out here. I'd hear things, but then really the turning point was honestly like day one of my first summer camp. Like right after that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. I'm, Mizzou fan for life. Not really fan, but like this is a brotherhood that you bond with these guys out there over. And it's like, it goes way beyond football. And so at that moment in time, I was like, yeah, MIZ forever. But
nice.
It did take a little bit, but and I wasn't like a crazy diehard fan before that. So going back, I may not recall things as well.
Sure.
So outside of Dorial Green Beckham, who were some of the most talented players you ever played with at Mizzou?
Well, yeah,
or
you
against.
say outside of DGB because he was a freak.
I figured that'd be an obvious answer.
It was just raw talent.
Yeah.
It was just raw talent. Like, I mean, I'm sure he would hate me saying this, but we were weight partners together. Like, you look at me, I'm right now 180 pounds and 6'1", and he's like lifting the same weight as I am. He was just naturally gifted and didn't have to work at anything. And so, kind of in the weight room, he was like, whatever. But he did ended up, really turning things on later and grinding some more. But he was just a freak. And then another guy who was just out of his mind, just crazy talented, was a guy named Sheldon Richardson. He was a beast. And like I've got a funny story about Sheldon. This goes back to my first summer camp. So like I said, I wasn't a big Mizzou fan. I don't know who like any of these guys are prior to getting there. It doesn't matter to me. They're just other guys. And so of course, me being a walk-on, one of the new freshmen, whatever, you get thrown on scout team and you just like look at a card. They hold up a card and they're like, hey, go run this play. Like, okay, like I didn't get many touches, didn't get many targets, whatever. Finally, a screenplay pops up and coach is like, Cam, you take this one. I was like, yes. Like I've been waiting for just like the chance to get the ball in my hand. So we run the play. QB takes one step, slings it. I take a step, pop back, grab the ball, and I look up and it's just open field. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. I tuck the ball and I just fly down the field and just take it to the house. Like there was no one there. Well, what I didn't realize was coming next was a whistle immediately blew, run it again. I'm like, well, if the only reason a screenplay works is because you have the element of surprise. Obviously, that corner was bailing because I'd run like 8 streaks in a row down the field. And so he knew that I was going to fly down the field. So when I took off fast and stopped, he had already bailed out. Well, whistle blows. Coach says, run it again. I'm kind of like, we've done it a few times. The guys just kind of go half speed, whatever. So I'm like, all right. Well, thinking I'm smarter than the defense who knows the play that's coming now, I'm like, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to take a few steps, and instead of just an immediate quick screen and turn up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this, a little bit deeper. And so I will take 2 steps up, and then I'll kind of bow in. What this will give me the opportunity to do is have my lineman get out a little bit to block in front of me. So I'm like, hot shot freshman thinking, I just took one to the house. I'm about to do it again. And so I take 2 steps up the field, turn around, catch the screen pass, turn up the field. Next thing I know, I'm on my back. Just like I have no idea what happened. Like my head is ringing. Like I can taste stuff in my mouth. I'm like my vision is just like completely blurred. Well, what happened was our O-line was like, yeah, it's kind of half speed. I'm not really going anywhere. He's out there. I'm not doing anything. So they just like stood up like this. And I kind of cut back inside. And I met Sheldon Richardson right there. And he hit me head on full speed, basically helmet to helmet, and just flattened me on my back. And I'll never forget it. Like Sheldon destroyed me. I mean, he's a huge guy. He's still kicking around the league, bouncing from team to team. But like, right then I was like, oh my gosh, this is another level of football. Like,
that's amazing.
He just destroyed me. And so, like, I'm super slow to get up. And one of Coach Pinkel's things was, like, you never stay down on the ground. Even if, like, you're hurt, you try and get up. And so that was, like, my first also interaction with GP is, get up, like, excuse me, like, screaming at me. And I'm like, feel like my innards are broken. My head, I'm I can't see anything. I'm like trying to find my way back. My helmet's on sideways. But so that was really, really fun. Sheldon was a freak athlete. I'm trying to think of who else. Marcus Golden was another one of the guys who I just knew that he was destined for the next level by only his work ethic. And that's what made him so gifted is he worked harder than anyone else always. And so he transferred in, I can't remember, maybe it was from Hutchinson Community College, something like that, a small school, maybe even a prep school. But he transferred in, and it's just his year in, his first year. I mean, you think about the DNs that we had in my time there. I mean, there was no spot for him in the rotation. We've got, I'm trying to think of who was at the time.
Michael Sam and Coney Ely.
Yeah. And Jaquez Smith was there, and Coney Ely was there, and all these guys. Mike was there, and so his only spot literally was on special teams. And I'll never forget it. The reason Marcus Murphy was so good is because he was there the entire time. So Marcus MG. Funny, they're both named Marcus, but he was running down the sideline, just knocking everyone out of the way and allowing Murph to make some of those really, really long runs. It was just cool because he just wanted it so bad. And so you knew that no matter where Marcus Golden was going to be on the field, he was going to give it 110%. And so I think the coaches really, really realized that, and he was just the hardest worker. Just go, sorry, I was going to say something that I realized I'm on a podcast. Probably shouldn't say that, but something to the wall.
Yeah.
He'd go something to the wall every day. And it was just, super cool to watch. So he was one of those guys that may not have been the most just like natural talent like Doriel was, but he just worked so hard that you just knew he was going to be phenomenal.
It just came out today that he got a new contract with the Giants.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty fat one.
Yeah.
Quick note on Doriel. I played against him in 8th grade. I remember I didn't even know who he was at the time, but we were playing against Reed Middle School. That's where he went, and I see him like walking down the sidewalk with his team to the field, and I kid you not, in 8th grade he was already like 6'5", 200 pounds.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, we have to play against this kid? Like, who is this? And like he was playing running back, I believe, at that time, but he was also their punt returner. And I saw some guys who I felt like were really good football players on my team get absolutely destroyed by him. Like when he had the ball, I mean, he was just running over people like it was like a toddler trying to tackle him. It was insane.
I mean, he was a mutant. But funny Doriel story that has nothing to do with my time at Mizzou. But when I ran track, I'd run the 110 hurdles and the 300 hurdles, and in most of our local meets. I was guaranteed like 20 points from that almost. And then coach would put me in like a relay that we needed or whatever. And then he would sometimes have me long jump if we needed more points. And so I'm at this meet, I think it was at Camdenton or something. I'd won the 110 hurdles. I'd won the 300 hurdles. So coach was like, yeah, we'll put you in the long jumps to score more points because we actually have a shot at winning this meet. And so I'm over at long jump, like, I've kind of done all my races. I'm going to really give it a good shot, a good go at winning the long jump. And so, I'm warming up, doing my stuff, getting my marks. I do my first attempt. It was pretty good. Do my second attempt. And I'm jumping pretty far. Like, and I'm looking around at the other guys. I'm like, dang, this is, I'm jumping pretty well. And then I jump again. I jump like 21 feet, which is really, really far in high school. And so I'm like, I mean, that could honestly get me to state. But I'm thinking there's no way anyone else is going to jump near this. And I'm kind of like, hey, do you mind if I see like where everyone else is at? And, I was a few feet ahead of the next guys. And I see Doriel Green Beckham at the bottom of the list. And he had recorded no attempts. And I was kind of like, oh, no. Like, I hope he's not going to jump or whatever. I don't know why he hasn't done anything yet. And, they make final call, Doriel Green Beckham, like, please report to the long jump or you'll be forfeited, whatever. Kind of like fingers crossed. Well, Doriel comes walking over in his tennis shoes. He like bends down, ties on his spikes, and he's like, all right, here we go. No warm up, no nothing. I don't even think he like marked out how far he was away. Just ran, hit the plate, jumps over, literally jumps like 23 something. And I was like, oh my gosh. He gets up, he walks over to the guy like sitting there with the clipboard, and he's like, anyone beat that? The guy goes, no. He's like, all right, scratch my last 2 jumps, I'm done.
Wow.
And I was just like, all right, cool. I appreciate that one. So give him a hard time about that one. Just like, you're so full of yourself. But hey, he could do it.
Yeah, it took about 8 of us to tackle him in that 8th grade football game.
I can imagine.
He's a monster.
I can imagine.
I mean, then it even in the SEC. I mean, like 4-touchdown game against Kentucky, and it just there's not very many guys that can just walk into the premier college football conference and just dominate the way he did.
I still think he is one of the top 10 like highest ranked wide receiver recruits on like the history of rivals.com.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He is literally one of the like greatest like wide receiver recruits coming out of high school to this day.
I think he's top 10 all-time recruits in any position.
You might be right.
At least on 24/7.
Yeah.
That's insane. And it doesn't surprise me from the numbers he was putting up, his body physique and body type coming out of high school. I mean, he was a mutant.
I remember ESPN did like a special on him, like when before he committed to Missouri, and then he had like a signing day special thing as well.
I will never forget whenever I saw on my phone, like I was sitting in my phone in class in high school or something and saw he committed to Mizzou, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was crazy at campus, too, when he came up for his visit, because he was a year behind me in school. But he came up, and so we call it the Missouri Athletic Training Complex. It's the MATSE for short. So he came up to the MATSE and was going to go on a tour. Well, if you've ever been there, here's the stadium, here's the training complex, there's a bridge that goes across the street, and it's kind of like an island. Like the roads in town kind of run around it, and so it's kind of hard to get in there. It was shoulder to shoulder. I kid you not, at least like 1,000 people. The bus had to like go. It was like almost like a game day. It wasn't a bus, sorry. The Tahoe that was like driving him had to go in between like lanes and all these people. They get out. They were chanting MIZ, DGB, and like just going absolutely nuts. And, we're all walking into the into the athletic training complex, like, wow, like they're really going nuts for this recruit. Like he must be really, really good. And I knew him, so I kind of knew, but it was just funny, like the football team's not even like getting any of this, but this kid from Springfield. And so it was pretty funny, but it worked. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I always kind of wonder what the team thinks, like especially like Missouri's had some basketball teams recently that aren't doing so well, and they'll host a big recruit or something, and I kind of wonder when there's like the student section or the fans that are more excited about the recruit visiting than the actual team because of their struggles. I kind of wonder what that does for the morale of the players, but maybe some of those guys were in that position a couple years before, so maybe it evens out.
Yeah, exactly. And, we had a bunch of pretty big recruits as well in my class and in the classes before me, so they were able to kind of, just brush it off. Whatever, guys. Let's, it'd be great if we got him, but if not. But it was funny. Some of the guys would still give him a hard time after he, even came to Mizzou and stuff. And it was fun, but always, in good fun. It wasn't like, hurtful or anything. But hey, he was a freak.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a pretty open-ended question so you can spend however much time on each section how you want. I'm just curious about kind of the mindset of the team as you guys transitioned to the SEC and then really took some lumps that first season with injuries and, maybe not quite living up to expectations, probably internally more than anywhere else. And then that bounce back year in 2013 when just about everything went right. Can you just kind of take us through that? Whatever parts you want to talk about more, Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take you through the full transition from where I saw it on inside the team. So my freshman year, we're in the Big 12. Super, super exciting. That's been a long time now, so I can't remember everything that was taking place. But we had a lot of excitement in that season. I know we beat Texas at Mizzou, which was super, super fun. I think that was like the first time we beat them in a really long time. And so there was just a lot of excitement in that. We ended up going to the Independence Bowl and winning that against UNC, which was pretty fun. But it wasn't a top bowl. It wasn't anything crazy. And so then the rumors start coming around of could we be going to the SEC? Could all this happen? And, there was a lot of money behind that move. And it was the right move for the entirety of the program, given that Mizzou has really great other sports as well, swimming, diving, like all just running the entire, spectrum of Mizzou athletics is the right play. And so we're hyped up, obviously you get a piece of the best league in college football, and we're feeling pretty confident. We've got a great team. We've got a great recruiting class coming in. We're, really, really confident. And there's all this even more excitement around it because we get new jerseys, new helmets. Our stuff was kind of crummy before. It was kind of traditional, kind of whatever, but nothing crazy. And then all of a sudden, this is unveiled and this is the greatest stuff ever.
That would have been
awesome.
That would have been controversial with the old white guys. What you just said, probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we probably got some listeners who are like, crummy.
The Block M, crummy.
Yeah. Sorry. So
you didn't hurt my feelings.
Obviously, the M is making a comeback on some of their alternative helmets and everything. But just a player's perspective, new fun stuff. So Nike ended up. It was super fun. We got to learn a lot about it. But that color of gold is specific to only Mizzou. So specifically made that color gold. They did the tiger stripes on the helmet. It was just a bunch of stuff that was super, super cool. But there's so much excitement building. And then obviously we get into the season, not how the season turned out. And a lot of people will look at that and go, oh, it's kind of like a bust, flop, whatever. They're not as good as they think they are, whatever. They don't belong, all this. In my honest opinion, that team was the most talented team I played on. And we went to the SEC championship 2 years in a row after that. And so that just tells you, we were just plagued by injury at the wrong time. We lost some key linemen. James Franklin got hurt. We were just plagued the entire season with some near misses. Sheldon ended up doing something stupid, and Coach Finkel suspended him for the last game against Syracuse, which if we win that, we're bowl eligible to kind of redeem the season, and they steal one away from us at home. It was rough, but that team was phenomenal. And so morale-wise, inside the locker room and inside the team, we knew how close we were to being sensational that season. We don't have some of those key injuries. We don't lose some of those close games, and boom, that season is completely different. But it honestly kind of helped to our advantage because Now everyone's like, who is this Mizzou team? They didn't go bowl eligible last year, like whatever. And so then the transition, we kept that same fire. It was actually, like, I hate to say this, but it was kind of nice we didn't go bowl eligible based on only the fact that I hated it, wanted to go to a bowl really bad. But when you're a Mizzou football player, when you're a college football player and you go bowl eligible, basically what your entire break looks like from school is you got finals and you're gearing up for, right before finals is when like conference championship time is. Then you've got finals, and as soon as finals hit, you're done, and you have like 3 days off. Like coach gives you like a few days right after finals to focus on finals. I think finals week, super light. But then as soon as that's done, you have like a month and a half until your bowl game's really going to play. And so it's kind of that same thing that I talked about in summer camp. It's like you've got a long time to work through nicks and dings. Let's go really, really hard. And so it's honestly time for younger guys to shine and time for guys like me to show out. So it was a fun opportunity. But through that whole time, you're working out, you're practicing, you've got practice every single day. Now you're out of class. At Mizzou, we were out for 6 weeks. And so being out for 6 weeks, that's a lot of time to do nothing if you're just a student. But we're practicing the entire time. When we were at the Independence Bowl, we played, I think, the 25th or 6th, like the day after Christmas, I think. And so we didn't spend Christmas with our families, didn't go home at all. So you're practicing all the way up. You fly to wherever you are. You spend like a week there, do all that, and then maybe you're home for a week or two, and then you're back at practice again, for winter stuff. So the only reason that was nice was the fact that we were immediately done and could just enjoy all 6 weeks of break. And coach was just like, you guys better be ready to go when you get back. Like, don't take this time off of working out. Don't, blow it, but, take time to rest, recover, and then we're getting after it. So it was kind of a nice little break for us. Because then we didn't have that for 3 years after that, which I'm thankful for. But then coach was just like, hey, let's get after it. And we all had that mindset of like, hey, we're better than people think we are. And now we really need to prove ourselves because people are really looking down on us in the SEC. So we used that as some fuel to the fire and came out guns a-blazing after that. And really, really, I think did an amazing job. That junior season for me was the first year we won the SEC East. We ended up playing Auburn in the championship, and that place was insane. It felt like we had 25 Mizzou fans there.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it did.
But it was just the atmosphere playing in the old Georgia Dome was super, super fun, getting to experience that. But that was just insane. But that year, I mean, we were so close.
Oh, yeah.
Things turn out differently in the second half of the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Man,
Us in the Natty.
Yeah.
As a fan, that 2013 season was probably one of the most fun seasons I've ever had watching any sport. And, there was a return of Henry Josie. And, yeah, like you said, I mean, just a few plays potentially away from a national championship. I mean, it just doesn't happen for Missouri that much, you know. And, man, I got to say that Auburn game was electrifying. It was insane, but it also was heartbreaking knowing how close we were to having a once in a lifetime experience, as a fan.
Yeah, and insanely frustrating just watching Auburn run up and down the field on us, and we're just like, man, what is happening right now?
I don't know if I'll ever forgive Dave Steckel for that game.
Yeah, it's a shame that everything great he did, just you can always just think about that SEC championship game and just shake your head man, some kind of adjustment, please, coach.
Yeah. I remember, I think, and speaking of Doriel, I think he might have had the first score of that game on that, touchdown pass where it was kind of controversial, if he actually caught it or not. It looked like he kind of dropped it, but they called it a touchdown and it stood. Yeah. I remember that about that game, but he
showed up big in that game.
He did.
And the offense just kept pace with Auburn, and just needed a couple more plays.
Really until the fourth quarter.
EJ Gaines, I think, got a scoop and score. That I mean, it's
Yep.
just kind of crazy.
That was a fun season.
It was crazy. Yeah, EJ's still playing. I think he's on the.
I think he's opting out this season. I think I just saw he's opting out.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
wow.
just like a couple days ago I saw that. But
yeah, well, we'll see. That'll be interesting. But
You got that team kind of woke
Same.
everybody up after the Georgia game. That was a big statement win, and that was also James Franklin was injured, and Matty Mock came into that game. Was there ever a feeling? I know as fans there was this kind of like, okay, James Franklin getting injured again. Are we in store for the same type of thing as last year? But obviously, the year before you didn't have Matty Mock ready to go. What was the dynamic there like? And since you were a receiver, I figure you had some kind of insight into that.
Yeah. So I'm obviously in the room with all those big playmakers and everything. And it was just such a respect for James and what he did for the team and his style of play, the way he handled himself, the way he was composed. He came back a little different from his injury, which was a little bit like, come on, James, let's go, get back to it. But it was always, Matty Mock would get his series here and there, I think, after that and whatever. But it was just what we knew. And I think collectively as a group, anytime you have, a rise of skill level and a rise of talent, it can be detrimental if it's not handled in the right way. But the way that it was taken care of internally, with a respect for James, was just, he's gotten us to this point. He's done this. He's got the opportunity until he proves otherwise. I think everyone else was behind him in that, or as far as the wide receiver group goes, we were confident in James' level of performance and knew that he was going to, take us as far as he could take us. And Matty was fun and electrifying and exciting, but it's just a different style of play. You've got a huge built quarterback in James, and then you've got a smaller, scrappy scrambler in Matty. And from the wide receiver position, those balls look a lot different when they're thrown from escaping outside the pocket to someone a little bit more present in the pocket. So, it just was a little bit give and take. Kind of knew what you would expect, maybe expect a big play with Matty here and there, but then you kind of had a little bit more consistency from James. And guys just had a lot of respect for his leadership and the way James commanded the offense. So there was never really any kind of like, oh, coach, you should go with Matt. There was never any of that, or to my knowledge.
There was plenty of that in the fan base.
Oh yeah, we could hear it too.
Yeah. I'll never forget Matty Mock's first start, I believe, against Florida. We were a little bit nervous, like how is this going to go? The season's going really well. I want it to just continue. Keep the momentum, and right off the bat, he just is killing
Torches
it.
him. Yeah.
That was a really, really exciting win.
Super, super fun.
Was there a more demoralizing loss in your entire football career than that South Carolina game that season?
No, I was just gonna say, wait, let me guess, and which one you were gonna say. I can still hear that sound like perfectly. Dong.
Yeah.
And so I was a backup holder for a long time as well, and held a little bit, and so Andrew Baggett and I had a great relationship, and I just felt so bad because he was the sweetest guy and he worked so hard. And so kind of guys, when you're in practice, you see the kickers kind of off doing their thing, and from the couch, everyone thinks that they could kick a 40-yard field goal easy and everything like this. And then all the factors come into play when it's actually happening and when you're really out there. But I just felt like he was getting death threats and things for that. And it was just like super, super hard on him emotionally. And, I wish now looking back, I wish I knew more of what was going on and could have, offered a hand to talk through some of it with him, because I just know that emotionally that's rough on your mind. mess with him a little bit just in his confidence of, hey, I need to make this, or else that stuff's going to happen again. And, it's just unfortunate. But, yeah, we were all pretty bummed. And you always think in your mind, you're just a kicker. You should be able to make all these things. But, man, that's one of the toughest jobs on the field.
Yeah, Andrew Baggett had a pretty solid career at Mizzou, but I'm afraid that he will probably always be remembered for that moment. But, looking back, I don't really feel like the season changes that much. Even if you guys do win that game, I think the same thing happens. You still play Auburn in the championship, in the SEC championship, and probably go to the same bowl. I'm not sure that the season really ends up being all that different.
Yeah, at the time it seemed a lot worse than how it ended.
It was devastating.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. That was, we played. So we still play Texas A&M at home, beat Johnny Manziel. And, maybe more favored in that game or whatever, or I don't know. But
a higher ranking in the BCS.
Yeah, we would have been, top 5 for sure. But
I think you guys did still end at 5th at the end of the year. Yeah.
End at 5th or something?
Mm-hmm.
After when it was all said and done after the Cotton Bowl win. I think 5th.
Mm-hmm. After the Cotton Bowl win.
Yeah.
And that game was a blast.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
There was a lot of back and forth there too, and Shane scooped and scored one from a long way out.
Basically sealed it.
I still get a little misty-eyed when I watch the highlights of that game. I'm not gonna lie.
It's fun now because I live in Dallas. And I'm a huge Cowboys fan, but it's fun. When we played in that game, we practiced there for the whole week, which was so cool because unfortunately for Oklahoma State, I can't remember how it worked out, but they had to practice in, I think, Highland Park High School's facility. And we got to practice in Cowboys Stadium for every practice. And so how it would work was we'd show up in our buses. We stayed downtown in a hotel, and we'd get in our buses, drive out. It's, it's not super close to downtown, but it's out in Frisco. Anyway, it's out that way. It's urban thing. But we'd go out there, and we would get to the stadium, go into the locker room. And we're in the same locker room as the Cowboys use. Like, it's not any different. It's just stuff is in there and not theirs. And so you're in there and, you've got like 20 minutes to be on the field. So you get your stuff on really fast. You run out there. Well, practice would end and the bus would leave in like an hour and a half because guys have to do treatment. You have to do, take your ankle tape off, undo kind of the stuff that you get ready for practice as far as an injury prevention, get all that treatment stuff taken care of. So you have a lot of leeway after. So the entire stadium is empty and open. So we would just, right after practice, shower real quick, like throw on your stuff, and then just haul out to just explore Cowboy Stadium with not a soul in it. And you kind of have the keys to the kingdom, essentially, because if anyone stops you, like, I'm supposed to be here. Like, it's one of those very rare times where you're like supposed to be somewhere where no one else is, and you kind of have like favoritism shown on you, and you can kind of play the naive card. I'm just looking for the locker room. But we got to wander around a lot, and that was a super, super cool experience. Got to have dinner with Jerry Jones on one of the balconies and watch TV up on the massive screen and everything. So the entire atmosphere, other than the game, was also really, really fun. But
that's awesome. Going back just for a minute, I was at the Texas A&M game that sealed the deal for the SEC East, and I'll never forget Henry Josie kind of hitting that gap and making that little hurdle and taking it to the house. And just, I don't think I've ever, funny enough, the only time I've ever been in an environment that amped up and electric was before Michael Porter Jr.'s first game on the basketball team, which was a totally different situation, not hardly any stakes in that game. But and then the crowd rushing the field and everything. That was just kind of a surreal thing to see as a Mizzou fan.
It was insane. It was really, really a blast.
And of course, Johnny Manziel being the guy that you take down to get to that point.
Yeah, it was fun because the year, I'm trying to think, 2 years prior to that. No, the year before that was our bust year in the SEC.
Yeah, and he won the Heisman that year.
Stomped us down at Texas Station.
Yeah.
And so it was just like so good. He's this, king-like character of college football, and we get the W, and and then go to the SEC championship because they had a lot riding on that game as well.
Mm-hmm.
But still,
and that was
really fun.
That was the same night as the Alabama-Auburn kick six that sent Auburn to the national championship. And as Mizzou fans, we were all like, "You're kidding me! Like, Missouri's going to get to play Auburn instead of Alabama? Like, that's a dream come true."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was crazy. Yeah. Now that you say that, I was like, I don't even remember watching the game.
Yeah.
For probably a good reason. But but I've seen the video a million times.
And we were, as Mizzou fans, we were actually watching the score on the scoreboard in the stadium, and we saw it go from Auburn losing with 3 seconds left to Auburn winning in regulation. And we were like, what happened? Like, because we were paying attention to that score all night, wondering if Missouri pulls this off, who are we going to play? And so we saw that score happen, and we were just like, what could have happened there? And then come to find out, field goal return for a touchdown.
And then you watched the most iconic college football play of all time.
I watched that live, actually. That literally was like the most iconic thing in college football history, probably.
Yeah. Just insane. But I will say, anytime we shared the field with Alabama, though, that was just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
They're just a dynasty of dynasties. And just, so my sophomore year, our first year in the SEC, we played them at home, which was so cool. And we had like hundreds of thousands of people in town to watch the game, and it's rowdy, and the stadium's sold out, and people are piled everywhere. And then it storms
pouring
and
down rain.
Yeah.
And the game gets delayed. And so everyone leaves. And what was different about the Big 12 to SEC was the Big 12, you could leave the game and come back in.
Right.
And SEC is you leave the game, you're done. Like, you can't go back in. So all these people had to leave, take cover. They're like, I'm not getting rained on. They leave. And, like, there's no one there. And so I'll never forget this. So we come back out from one of the rain delays. I don't remember which one. I mean, it felt like we were in there for 2 hours with the storm going on. We come back out. They kick off to us. And we take it to the house. And it's just us cheering.
Wasn't it TJ Moe?
Like, we're so hyped. We just took this thing to the basement. And there's 80 of us on the sideline cheering for Murph as he takes this one to the house. And it's like, man, if this place was full with the 80,000 people that were in there, that completely flips the script on how this game goes. Instead, it's me and my yay, nice run. And it's just.
I think if memory serves, it was 28-0 or something at that point, maybe.
Yeah.
So I remember watching that game, and just it really was so cool at the beginning when the stadium was packed, and then just terrible timing for
it was rowdy,
for the storm.
and then
the
wind went out of our sails real quick. Because then only 20,000 people were allowed back in, so it just felt like there were less people there than are typically at our black and gold scrimmage.
Yeah,
social distancing.
Cam, you've been very gracious with your time. We've been talking to you for almost an hour here. And Kyle, do you have any other big questions that you wanted to get to? Do you have any stories that you were hoping maybe we would get to? Anything that you want to tell us about that we just didn't quite get around to?
Oh, man, let me think for just a second, but I'll just say thank you guys so much for having me on. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
You guys have a real cool thing going here, and I'm looking forward to listening to more. But I'm trying to think before I leave.
Speaking of social distancing, I guess I'll bring this up really quick. There's been a lot of talk about how the season's going to happen, all that stuff. They're trying, Major League Baseball is happening right now. They're trying to contain all the players, keep them from going out at night and stuff like that. Is that a realistic thing for college football in 2020? Can they contain these players?
From what I know of college kids in the way, so, I mean, y'all may not know this, you may know it, but when we would go to home games in town, we had to go stay in a hotel on the opposite end of town, as far away as you could get from all of it, just to kind of be secluded. And I know that, it's still madness and chaos keeping guys in there and, doing everything that you can to keep your players safe and in bed at a reasonable hour to prepare for, a game that's just like any other game. I have a really, really hard time seeing how they'll keep their finger on all these players the rest of the time, and the thing that's so difficult about football, as well as, I think a lot of these sports, but, with football, every one game matters a lot more than a lot of other sports. Arguably college basketball is kind of the same way, just because it's a condensed schedule. But in the NBA and the MLB, you're seeing these games play out, and it's like, we don't have to win this one. We can take this one off. So if you get one or two players, 3 or 4 players on a baseball team that test positive and they sit out, it's kind of whatever. Maybe we'll lose this series or whatever. But in a college football or in the NFL, you have the opportunity to potentially lose an entire offensive line from one week to the next. And then what happens then, in their quarantine, and you're trying to find guys to fill those positions because, a 52-man roster in the NFL doesn't have a lot of reserve spots on there. So it just looks a little bit different for football than a lot of these other sports. And that's a lot of guys and a lot of possible interactions, even if you're only dealing with a 52, 53-man, a little bit more than that with IR roster. That's still a considerable amount more than 15 NBA players that you're trying to keep track of. So, I love football more than anything else, and I want it to happen. I just have a hard time seeing them really find a stone, like a super solid way of keeping them in line. But
that's way too much of a logical, rational take on that. We really needed you to just spin some kind of story where it'll be a piece of cake. It's not a big deal at all. Unfortunately, I
think realistically of But, hey, thank you guys again so much for having me. I'll just leave you with my time at Mizzou was unbelievable and wouldn't trade it for the world. Got a bunch of super fun experiences, opportunities, developed some amazing relationships, had a bunch of super great coaches, great staff. Have wished nothing but the world for the program moving forward, and I loved it and loved everything about Mizzou. So I miss it. Just love getting up to Columbia. If only it was easier to fly there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, we really appreciate you coming on. We got a lot of good content there. Got a lot of our questions answered. We love seeing sort of how stuff works behind the scenes, stuff that fans don't typically see, all the time. So we really appreciate it. If we think of a bunch of other questions, we'll have you back another time, or if there's something else for us to talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say, feel free if you are on the way home and you think, oh, shoot, I should have asked that, or I wonder what that's like, or, whatever. Shoot me, feel free to holler and I'll answer your questions for you. So.
All right, that sounds great.
Appreciate it, man.
Well, y'all have a great night.
Yep, that was Cameron Chancey. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
And that was an interview we did with Cameron Chancey. There were 3 Camerons in the room. Didn't get confusing, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think we would love to continue to keep doing interviews in the future. Like you said earlier, probably would love to do another one with Cameron at some point. So,
as we alluded to in the interview, some of our connections are all based around the 2013-14 teams, so maybe we'll just try to interview everybody on that team.
Yeah, get everybody's perspective.
We'll get Sheldon on here, see if he remembers pancaking Cam. But yeah, that was a long interview, so we won't really try to add anything else in here. So Kyle, go for it.
I guess I'm up, huh?
That's your cue.
All right, guys, you can find this podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Mizzou Sports Pod. You can email us at
Missouri Sports
MizzouAthletics.com.
No.
What is it?
I don't remember.
Missouri Sports Pod.
at gmail.com.
That's it. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next week. Later this week, I guess, actually.